happened in 2023, we learned that if a part of your holding are in fiat, you are not totally protected. And so you need to back your stablecoin, but something that have no risk of counterparty.
That's Pierre, founder of Usual Protocol. Pierre's asking a simple question: who should benefit from stablecoin yield? While giants like Circle and Tether keep billions in interest from user deposits, Usual takes a different approach, redistributing value back to those who provide the liquidity. Today, with around 800 million in TVL, they're building on what they call pristine collateral, while balancing the needs of yield farmers and long-term investors who currently engage with their protocol. Here's our episode with Pierre from Usual. Season 4 of Stableminded is powered by M0, the stablecoin platform for builders. M0 recently crossed 230 million in native stablecoins minted, helping builders turn payments from a cost center into a core revenue center. This season, we dive into how companies like Cast, Playtron, Wormhole, and others fit into this dynamic ecosystem. With M extensions, builders can fully customize their stablecoin programs. And with their orchestration APIs, builders can scale minting and redemption freely. Tune into episode 1 of this season to meet Luca and Greg, co-founders of M0. Stableminded is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Pierre, thank you so much for joining. How are you today?
How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to talk about Usual Protocol, everything you're building. This season has been a really fun one to record. I'm learning a ton. I think I have the best job in stablecoins. Like, I get to talk to founders all day and learn. And I think this idea of building stablecoins has been something that we've been exploring this season with M0. Just the idea of issuance, the idea of branding your own stablecoin. What does this look like? There's so much nuance to this. Really excited for this conversation to pick apart how you guys have approached this. So before we dive in, let's start with an intro, your name, a little bit about Usual, and then we can dive in from there.
Sure. So my name is Pierre. I'm the CEO of Usual Lab. That is a company that is developing the protocol Usual. I start this company in 2022. We raised some fund from angels and so on, and we start building a stablecoin that is different than the other in a way that we aim to be fair, redistributing, the value that is captured by the giant of the ecosystem. And so during 2 years, we work on the system itself, how we make it decentralized, how we make it sure in terms of security, first the code, but also the financial layer that is between the user, the collateral, and so on. And we are live since a little bit less than 1 year. We have made a pre-launch phase during 4 or 5 months. And we are fully live since December. Currently, we have 800 million of TVL. We start continuing to expand the protocol to make more integration and to develop other product on top of the stablecoin. And so I will be very pleased to explain what we do with partners and third parties. But clearly, my main job is to find innovation on a field that is really competitive. Because stablecoin is a hard field and you need every day to reinvent a little bit yourself on a product that is really straightforward because a stablecoin is a mean of payment, a trading counterparty. So you need also to invent new approach that fit with the market, with the users directly.
Yeah. Pierre, how did you get involved with this? I find that when you probably started this journey, when you started the business, started raising capital for it, stablecoins they didn't a year ago feel like they feel now, in my opinion, where everyone is now everyone's rushing in. People like me have a stablecoin podcast, stuff like this. The moment is now. I don't know if it was a year ago. What made you convicted to do what you're doing now and go solve this problem? When did you originally come across the need for something like Usual?
Yeah, it's a long journey of thinking process, First of all, in my former life, I was engaged in politics and I work a lot on regulation. So I work a lot on stablecoin itself. And I was fully convinced since, I think, 2017, 2018, that tomorrow the money and the form of the money, especially fiat money, will be on-chain in a form of stablecoin. So really, I think if you want to engage yourself in finance, doesn't make sense today to just join a corporate company, a bank, just to build on top of, let's say, an old infrastructure. And so I was convinced that the future of money will be in a form of stablecoin tomorrow. In 2021, after COVID, we have seen the Fed and especially in general, the central bank policies changing a lot with the growth of the interest rate. And those issuers, the giants so like Circle and Tether, were starting to make a lot of money. And this money belongs normally to the user because people deposit in the stablecoin issuer some money, and in exchange they have a token that represents a debt. And these guys are making a lot of money with the money of the users. And so when I quit my function and my mandate, I decided to create Usual with the aim to make a stablecoin, a decentralized one, but backed by real world asset. So that merge also the composition of the collateral of Usual. That is important because I really think that stablecoins should be really safe, but also with the idea of redistributing the value. And the value can be redistributed directly in a form of the yield of the collateral, but we choose to distribute it in a form of the token that represent the future cash flow and the growth of the company. So we have a different approach that is clearly different than the other, but the idea is also to differentiate Usual from Tether, Circle, or also other yield-bearing stablecoin to attack the market with a different approach, with the idea and the political idea that we should redistribute the value to the user that bring liquidity on chain.
I tend to agree that the innovation there is really exciting. For those who I think right now, and for context, Pierre, a lot of our listener base, I think is entering this conversation in many ways for the first time. They are trying to navigate this landscape and figure out where they can think of everyone and where they fit. From my standpoint, it might be helpful for you to outline the difference of a centralized stablecoin to like a Circle compared to what you're doing. That might be a great place to start. And then we can dive into the infrastructure that you're talking about more.
So Circle and Tether are simple infrastructure that are regulated or not, and that aim to collect some cash, some fiat. And in counterparty of this fiat that is deposited in some money market fund or some banks, they issue you a token. And this token represents a claim on the liquidity you bring to them. So whenever you want, if you are registered to them, you can ask against one token to withdraw the equivalent of dollar of this token. And this token worth $1. And so you are able every day to withdraw from Circle and Tether $1 of value through the normal and the, let's say, the normal financial ecosystem, so your bank and so on. So that's the system. So everything is centralized. An issuer is receiving some fiat and issue also a token. And it's not decentralized at all, but that's not the purpose. And that was the first really structuration of those products that help a lot the crypto ecosystem to be developed. Usually it's different in a way where we build an infrastructure that is permissionless, where people can deposit some collateral that can be permissioned, but the structure of Usual is permissionless. And in exchange of that, we issue a stablecoin. So in certain sense, at the end, if I'm not working on the project, the smart contract will exist anyway, and we can have this form of issuance that is not really controlled by a central entity or myself, but just by the rules of the smart contract that aim to protect the issuer, but also to be immutable, so to live after me. And so clearly, the idea of having a decentralized structure is a structure that is more transparent. We spoke a lot about the reserve of Tether. Is Tether has everything that they said, considering that they have billions on chain, but have they these billions off chain in terms of liquidity and so on? Are they solvent? So with our structuration, there is no more question about that because everything is on chain. People can see the collateral on chain. They can see also the monetary mass of USD0 that is a stable coin, and they can compare. And instantly they can say, yeah, these guys are trustable, this protocol are trustable because clearly everything is back. And I don't have any needs to have, let's say, a big four corporate company that will make reports and so on about that. I just have the proof that on chain I have all the asset.
Yeah. It's been interesting to that point. I've recently been going into, like Ernst & Young or Deloitte or whoever these big audit companies are. It's a big business to have the auditable trail. I was listening to a podcast that Luca from M0 was on, and he described it pretty, I think he said that like we're calling this stablecoin infrastructure, but really it's like the last layer of payments we're just putting on chain, but everything else above it is traditional banking. And he's not super far off by saying that, because you do have to go to Circle's website and click on a PDF that is attesting for these off-chain balances still. And I just can't help but feel like that is such an outdated, non-innovative future for the space, that if we are trying to build this truly on chain, I'd imagine that something like that is probably less necessary. What question for you, just quick aside on that, what do you actually imagine will be will there be third-party companies in your mind that will be tasked with doing that function, like the Ernst & Youngs or the audit function? Like, do you see anyone doing that today, for instance, really well?
Well, I really think that what you describe is really, really true. Is that the first company in the crypto ecosystem need also to coexist with various other, let's say, other companies that are more off-chain. And so you have a layer of on-chain, off-chain in the same company that makes them not fully efficient and not fully decentralized. But in the future, all companies that are making audits like EY and so on, I don't know if they will be replaced, but they would change also their business model. Because clearly on chain, we need some people that know how to analyze the data, to build aggregate, read just the blockchain, and to do an interface where you can have an automated report and so on. A part of my team is making dashboard to be sure that everyone, my grandmother, should be able just to read the analysis of what we have as a collateral and what we issue. So clearly, this work will change, but the whole chain of value will change also, because currently we are using assets that are money market fund token. And what are money market fund? It's a fund that aim to have in their balance sheet some treasuries that are assets that are like paper and so on, representing T-bills and so on. And they've wrapped it, and so they've wrapped paper in certain sense. In the long run, we can expect that directly US Treasury will issue directly on chain their bonds, and T-bills will be directly on chain. So this structure will disappear because it makes sense currently. But when all the infra will be on chain, you will have all the value chain that will be tokenized, and everything will make sense because you will be able to see the whole chain of value. Currently, for instance, if you want to audit USD0, you will see on chain that we have some USYC or M0 token that represent the collateral, that are both our collateral. But in certain sense, if you want to understand where the T-bill are, you need to audit Bank of New York that will have a part maybe of this asset on another bank. And that's really complicated to have this information directly. The chain, is for the moment missing because not everyone is building on chain, but in the long run, it doesn't make sense to have your information system that will not be just based on blockchain. So I'm really bullish on that. But it will take time to be sure that TradFi will change and will adopt also the infrastructure. It's why I'm also quite bullish on what happened in US, not on everything, but on certain part. I really think that banks will have the trust and the confidence to start building on chain if the regulation is happening. And this piece of infrastructure is currently missing if you want to bridge the liquidity from TradFi to DeFi.
Yeah. Right now, from what I can see, and we can, I want to turn it back to what you're building after this, because I think we've skipped over that a little bit. But what I see happening is the issuers and the innovators, the usuals of the market today, they are the ones who need to feel the burden of telling the market, hey, everything's fine. You could go look here. Like you can see that assets are where we say they are. And it's sort of it's up to you right now to do that. It would almost be like Circle not working with EY and then having their own team say like, hey, yeah, here you go. But like in my mind, that's still like it ideally shouldn't be your job to have to do that. It should be a third party entity that can do that across the board almost for the entire industry, like some sort of verifiable, objective, because you're incredibly biased as the founder of this company. Like you're gonna be biased. So I'm interested to see where that goes. We might have a part to play our business in that. We can talk more about that maybe, but why don't we take a step back and go back to usual here? I think for people who are still trying to think about the idea of what, in my mind, what really needs to be focused on is what is actually backing the asset itself. Can you talk a little bit about how Usual has approached that, maybe uniquely from other companies in the idea of building stablecoins?
Sure. So first of all, we wanted to do a fiat-backed stablecoin because there is a lot of different stablecoin that are backed by crypto, stablecoin that are backed by algorithm. And so we choose the first one because I really think that nothing will replace money if it's not tokenized money. So we need to tokenize money. And when you want to tokenize money, what is the best thing? The best thing to issue a stablecoin is to have M0. And when I say M0, is not M0 as a company and as a protocol, and I will come back to that, but this is also why it's a great name. We need to have a pristine collateral. And pristine collateral, that means that should be, something that is issued directly by central banks or by states. What happened in 2023, especially with Circle, that had bad luck, is that one of the bank make bankruptcy. And SVB make bankruptcy, and we learn that if a part of your holding are in fiat, you are not totally protected. And so you need to back your stablecoin, but something that have no risk of counterparty, where no one can steal your money or no one is investing money in something that can lose value because the entity is making bankruptcy. So clearly we choose to build Usual on top of what we call money market fund. Money market fund are just a fund that hold really short-term asset, T-bills token or T-bills in general, and issue, if they are tokenized, a token on top of that. And so it's why the collateral of Usual, it's like extreme short-term, like overnight repo or very short-term T-bills that aim to be really liquid. Because if someone wants to withdraw from your stablecoin issuer, you need to be sure that you can give them the amount of dollar very quickly, and especially to be sure that your stablecoin is pegged and the market is efficient. And so we start working with few issuers. Two of them, Hashnote and M0, is the one that also fit with what we want to build for one reason. M0 is first a pristine collateral. I really think that the way they build their policy to be sure that they are not exposed to fractional reserve risk, to banking deposit and so on, is really important for Usual. That are short-term, that offer instant liquidity, to be sure that we can go in and go out and ensure the stability of the stablecoin. And they are also decentralized in their approach. And that's really important because when you are a founder that want to build a decentralized protocol, you want the protocol survive to yourself. You want to be sure that as a founder, especially as you are bootstrapping your protocol, you want to be sure that at the end, you will not be the one that manage daily the protocol. The protocol should be daily managed either by the community or the governance, but also by the infrastructure that should be automated and work trustfully directly on its own. So M0 aim to do that, to be a better layer for money in general, not just an aggregation of T-bills and so on. It's way more complicated and more sophisticated. And they'll build on top of that a layer of governance for the participant. And for Usual, that's really important because that aim, that give us a possibility also to have a word as, user or owner of a part of the capitals that are deployed by M0. And that's really, I think, the great innovation. M0 founders work a lot on what should be the incentive, what should be the game theory for something in terms of governance to work. And really, that's something that is missing currently in DeFi. Because you can make automated smart contract, but at the end, if your governance is not working well, if it's not really balanced in terms of game theory, that is not working. So this financial infrastructure innovation and also this governance innovation is a mix and describe well M0. And so we choose to back also stablecoin by this kind of a token because it represents and fully aligned with the ethos of Usual. So we have two layers. We have the first layer that is M0, and on top of that, we are building the stablecoin. And so M0 can be an asset, a pristine collateral for every other stablecoin that can build also on top of M, that is a token of M0 protocol.
When you think about the idea of decentralization, that's something that just keeps coming up when people are talking about who they choose to partner with on this side and why M0 for many, like you, seems to be an interesting innovator in that idea of decentralization. Can you just double click on that of what that really practically means? Like what they've done to ensure that there is a sense of decentralization in the system, and maybe compare that or contrast that to what a more centralized model looks like. I'm curious to know more there.
Sure. I think one of the layers of decentralization and why they do that is that they allow everyone to connect to their infrastructure if they respect, certain criteria that are also very important to the safetiness and the risk of their asset. But they aggregate few minters that are not just them, but also various other competitors, and they connect them to issue, I think, the best type of money in order to have the pristine collateral for various also actors that are acting in DeFi. So aggregating other money market fund, other actors that can be also minted, that can receive the asset and are managed by the same rules, creates the capacity to build a network that is decentralized, because on top of that, you have a layer of governance. But so you have both aspects. You aggregate competitors, because initially, some money market funds are competitors on a fragmented market. So the liquidity with their token is totally fragmented. Let's say Hashnode, OpenEden, and so on have different tokens. And so their tokens are not totally liquid between each other. M0 aim to be something that aggregate all those guys if they respect a certain type of criteria. And the governance manage the whole distribution of the power in the infrastructure. So clearly, they are organizing, I think, something that is really normally really competitive landscape, fragmented and so on. And they aggregate all those guys to be sure to issue the best product that is governed by also the user, plus also the minter and people that are using the ecosystem.
Yeah, I've been, I think by the time this podcast comes out, this will be probably more public, but I've been really interested to pick apart their relationship with Braille. M0 and Braille, I think, have there's some interesting things going on there. And when I originally thought about the both of them, I thought about them as playing very similar parts or similar roles in the industry, because I saw both of them as like, oh, they're both helping people make stablecoins or build stablecoins that are branded and their own. But it sounds like structurally they kind of fit into those different buckets that you're talking about. And it actually creates a really interesting complement to each other, potentially. What other companies like Hashnode, Braille, who else do you see in that stack that are kind of maybe complementary to the industry in that way? I'm assuming there are not a ton of them, but who else is in that part of the industry, in your opinion?
You have a few of them. You have Superstate that is making a great job. You have USDTB that is issued by Ethena. You have Beetle from BlackRock. You have a lot of actors that...
Is Mountain in that category too?
Yeah, absolutely. Mountain Protocol is doing. You have Agora, you have Midas in Europe. So you have Spico that is also a French money market fund regulated that is connected to M0. So you have a lot of actors that are doing this kind of product with different way of structuration in terms of regulation, in terms of fees, and so on. The idea is really to aggregate that and to issue a better product on top of that, to unify also the liquidity. And that's really important in a world where in DeFi, the liquidity is king. And you should have something that is really accessible, instantly fungible, and so on. And so they offer the potential to do that with a lot of factors that are clearly on the side, quite fragmented, and not totally liquid on secondary market instantly. So that's really also a strength of M.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the journey in the last couple of years of building this business. I think you guys have gone through some really interesting chapters of building Usual and the different, I would imagine, like peaks and valleys of what that's been like. Would love to understand from your perspective, like if you could share anything about what that's been like from your vantage point of what it sounds like was sort of a meteoric rise of interest early on to now a position where you're really now able to think strategically about the future and build things that it seems like you're in a building and growth phase right now. For those who are just meeting Usual for the first time, could you give us like a where you've been so far, and then we can talk about where you're after that?
Sure. So we are live since 1 year. We started with not a lot of TVL, not a lot of interest. Clearly, it was hard to raise some fund to explain what's the idea behind Usual and so on. Because even if a lot of VC are considering that stablecoin is a future, not a lot of them are investing because really it's difficult as a stablecoin issuer to survive. The network effect of the main competitors, the giant Tether, Circle, is huge. And so you need to fight against that and to differentiate yourself to be sure that you will add value as a company, as a protocol in this ecosystem. So I really think that we demonstrate that during 2024. We had an exponential growth that was also really hard to manage in terms of ensuring the peg of the stablecoin, to be sure that everything is going well, everything is under control in terms of security, so on. We spend millions in the audit. We have also one of the biggest bug bounty to be sure that the fund of your users are totally protected and safe. And because stablecoin, the first business of stablecoin is safetiness. And we need to be safe to be sure that either in terms of technical, in terms of code, in terms of infra, but also in terms of financial collateral, we are safe. So we grow a lot in December. In January, we activate all the mechanisms that were implemented in the white paper. We had some FUD and crisis. People were not totally also understanding the full design of the protocol, but that's it. Currently, right now, we are trying to educate what's the purpose, how we design it, and why it have been designed like that. Because there is reason of everything we put on the architecture of this model and this design, and that makes sense to equilibrate also every people. Because a lot of people in DeFi are using stablecoin to farm. That's good, but also that's a lot of mercenary capitals that are relocated after that. So they farm the token, after that they dump it. You need to find a better and sustainable way to distribute the value. So the idea of Usual since February is to redistribute the value generated to the token holders and to make sure that it's a fair way also to conceptualize the revenue of the protocol. That's something we contend, and we are really focused on that because it's clearly one of the main difference between Usual and all the other players on the ecosystem. Few things about the future. So Usual is starting to develop other product. First product on top of our stablecoin. We will develop other stablecoin in other currencies, plus also other yield product that aim to aggregate and optimize the yield. So in certain sense, we are like a yield optimizer through the stablecoin. We will also better distribute the stablecoin on various platforms, especially on CeFi in the next months. And the idea of Usual is to create also an ecosystem that can build infrastructure for DeFi in general. So we will make a few announcements in the next coming weeks that will be not just a stablecoin architecture, that will be product next to that will serve also the Usual ecosystem, that create more revenue, more use case for the stablecoin itself. Because a stablecoin is a mean of payment. For the moment, totally the payment system is not totally mature to use stablecoin directly, especially in Western countries. So in the long term, I have no doubt that everyone will pay with stablecoin, but that's a really difficult game to penetrate, B2C game for distributing stablecoin. But we should also optimize what's the stablecoin architecture and use case in DeFi first to be sure that it's fully efficient. If there is a lot of, find great things to innovate in DeFi around stablecoin, to also optimize DeFi and find a way to be as efficient and maybe more efficient than just TradFi. And sometimes there is inefficiency in DeFi that have been solved in TradFi. And I think a part of the Usual role is also to do that on the long term.
It's really great. I'm excited to dive into more of what's coming. Can you speak a little bit more to what is on the way? By the time this podcast probably releases, that news or that stuff will be out. So if you're able to share anything, that would be really interesting just to know what that looks like.
Yeah. We have two things. First, we will issue some vault that will allow people to combine various different yield that are not accessible in DeFi currently. So the idea is really to be, stablecoin is a bridge between the liquidity from TradFi to DeFi. But the idea is that sometimes you don't want just to be exposed as a DeFi users to DeFi product, to DeFi yield and so on. It can be quite restrictive and also sometimes not sustainable. So we really want to allow the user to bridge also in the other sense to be sure to expose also a part of the capital to various TradFi strategy and to be able to access to different sources of yield that are not accessible in DeFi. So that's really the first use case we want to develop, and we will have few partnerships that will be announced during this semester. The second thing is more in terms of structuration, in terms of really how Usual also should develop itself as an ecosystem. And we really want to build some infrastructure that are missing part in DeFi. So I cannot say everything right now because it's totally under embargo, but clearly the idea is to launch in Q3 few products that will be useful for the stablecoin, but that will fix also some needs in DeFi that are currently pending.
Yeah. I was talking about this with Rags, who leads Cast, the crypto banking and card product, who is also going to be on the season, just about this idea of like application versus infrastructure on the stablecoin asset side. What it sounds like you're realizing a little bit is there's like some really, really key infrastructure work that has to be done at the asset level to build a stablecoin that has all of the priorities and components that it sounds like Usual does. But then you get to a point where you're like, what is the use case or application in which this takes shape?
Yeah.
It sounds like that's sort of the current moment that you're thinking about, like developing applications or real utility for this.
That's a great point, yeah. 2020, 2021, maybe 2022 was the rise of the infrastructure, a lot of layer 1, layer 2, and so on. People trying to innovate. BC were financing only infrastructure and so on. So mainly networks. I really think that's cool. You can speculate on various tokens for layer 1 and so on. But at the end, if you have no application that also have a use case that is a concrete use case, not just speculation around some yield or some token and so on, that's not sustainable because you're just offering a product for DeFi degens or DeFi users and not really for the rebirth of a whole new financial system. So clearly we will have, I think in the next months, years, more products that are more oriented like application that will fix also certain needs, that will aggregate some services that are quite complex to be accessible as a user when you are not a professional of crypto, and that will serve also the daily use case for everyone that want to have access to something where you can pay easier, you can wire money easier, you can have more trust and having your phone directly on yourself and so on. So clearly, there is a lot of, the journey is just starting, on this aspect. I think we will pivot between something that were mostly focused on infra and will go mostly on application, because I really think also crypto should be more mature. It's something that I have seen also in my personal journey with Usual. So we are a protocol that issue a governance token. This governance token is not just a speculative token that represents nothing. At the end, with the governance token, you receive close to 100% of the revenue of the protocol, and so that's really the difference with a lot of token. And even with that, I think people were mostly focused on momentum, hype, and so on, and were not evaluating clearly the intrinsic value of what's Usual and what is the difference with other protocol. So clearly, continuing to innovate in a field that is less speculative, less based on hype, but more on, let's say, rational and very useful use cases are very important for me. And I think it will be the next step for the ecosystem, because we will be in a momentum that will be way more mature, especially if TradFi is coming in the game.
Yeah. Just to be clear on this, when you think about the DeFi ideal user, the person in your mind who would be, you meet them at a conference, networking event, and they say, this is who I am, this is what I care about, this is what I'm working on, or this is what I need. What type of ideal users do you think would be for this application layer that you're talking about? Who do you think Usual is most for? Like, who are they? What do they care about? What problems do you think you solve for them?
Question. I think first we are DeFi protocol. That make also a difference with what is M0, Hashnote, and all the other protocols that are more, let's say, financial and speaking to traditional actors. So we are speaking mostly for advanced users, people that have access to DeFi, that are really sophisticated in terms of approach, and that understand also what are the mechanisms behind Usual. In the long run, I think we will make also a pivot because we will find also a way to be more acting like a bank, because we start to build a protocol that is mostly oriented in DeFi, but we really want to have an approach that is a bank infrastructure that aim to offer various type of product. Let's say for beginners, but also for intermediaries and sophisticated users. And really, I see DeFi users as sophisticated one, but clearly we need also as a stablecoin, because it's, I think, the most simplest way to explain crypto stablecoin. We need also to find a different type of public. So currently I'm speaking to my public. Public is mainly LPs, hedge fund, crypto farmers, speculators, people that understand also what we want to do, but want to bet on the value of what we are. So there are more advanced people like pioneers and so on that want to invest in a young project that they believe that they will maybe be successful on the long term. But my goal is also to reach another type of public, and to be sure to be like DeFi fintech in certain sense, where we can offer various type of product, a very simple one, more complicated one, depending of what you are and what you want. And so that's the aim on top of the stablecoin, to diversify, because stablecoin is kind of an infrastructure, and offering various other products are more application that fit also depending of the need and the typology of your users.
It makes a ton of sense. It would be really interesting to, from a strategic standpoint, that user base that you just went down the list of, like the advanced DeFi users, hedge funds, traders, it's such a unique community. It's such a interesting part of finance, just the types of use cases that matter to those people. I would love to see more content developed around the things that those people care about. I think for me, I personally get pretty excited. I get naturally very excited on the infrastructure layer of building products, like the API layer of how you stand up things. I think that's naturally where I personally gravitate toward from an interest standpoint. I would love to see Usual start like leading the conversation, or like highlighting more of what those types of traders or users, how they think and what they care about. And it's such a unique, especially in crypto, it's such a unique community of people that care uniquely about different things.
Yeah. They think differently.
They think differently.
They're not engaged and motivated by the same thing. Sometimes just want to make money, find also some, different stuff in art, in NFTs and so on, discover new infrastructures to understand well how finance is working and so on. Clearly, yeah, you have different type of approach for entering in crypto, and after that finding also the good part of crypto. I really think that also as a founder, this was the purpose of Usual, make crypto better. It is so trying every day to find new use cases, but also to reinvent ourselves, not just to add a layer of complexity and so on, but to try also to make it different, to make things different as clearly TradFi need to be changed. And so there is no point to just reinvent the wheel, just to recreate Circle or Tether, or just to recreate a bank and so on. You just need to also invent a new system. But sometimes it's also complicated. You need to manage a lot of things, people that are not totally aligned. That also sometimes that is a little bit sad. It's that we need also to find a way to have better alignment in the crypto ecosystem, and not just a PvP game between insiders or people that have the info, or people that just want to extract value from protocol with no sustainable approach and so on. So That's also something I learned from my journey, is that it's difficult, even if your infrastructure is balanced, to find a really good balance between all the actors of you and users of your ecosystem. And I can give you an example. In usual, you have two type of persona. You have many farmers that are delta neutral and want to sell the usual, and you have also investors that will buy the usual that are sold by the farmers to bet on the fact that usual will grow over time and will be a very valuable company. And so it's sometimes difficult to find a really good balance between short-term view of certain users and long-term view of certain investors. And it's the role of the protocol. And the protocol is really made sure when it finds this kind of equilibrium itself with the automated rule plus the governance, and without any action from the lab or the company that is helping to develop the protocol.
It sounds like keeping a balance between those two parties is really crucial to making
Yeah.
it all work.
Yeah, you need to build the community. That's not easy. In the community, you need to find alignment. The alignment is not totally there because there is different type of persona, and some of them are professional, some of them not. Some are them and believers, some of them not, just speculators and want to extract value. So that's really difficult to find an equilibrium. And I started my journey in crypto in 2016. I think it was a little bit easier at this moment. It's really, really hard currently in 2022, 2023 to find also a good alignment between all the actors of the ecosystem. And so it's also one of my demand, if I can say it, my wish. I wish clearly that on the long run, we will refine also a way to find more alignment in the ecosystem and developing for just reinventing finance, all together in certain sense with more long-term and common view on what should be finance. So there should be more politics in crypto, more politics for DeFi, less politics outside. And focusing, I think, really on what should be the ecosystem at the opposition of what is currently the actual system. And it's something I discuss a lot with Luca from M0. That is, I think, one of the founder that I've met that have the most detailed and sophisticated vision on why he builds that, and he builds his protocol, also why what should be finance and why we need to change finance. And so that's quite interesting to see, also to learn about him, and to find also people that think that clearly they are not just building something to be a billions company, but also because they really think that the product will also bring a new piece of the financial infrastructure in the future that makes sense in general.
Yeah. I think some companies, they start because they want to make something marginally better, like slightly better, more competitive. M0 is not that company. They are reworking and rethinking and building an entirely new foundation to the system, which I think is why, and I don't know if it was 2022 or 3, but they raised like, I think the biggest round of the year
Yeah,
in the crypto space.
I was completely jealous. I say, look at how you did that.
It's not an easy thing to do to remodel finance from the ground up.
Yeah.
But what do you think? A couple of just rapid fire questions for you, and then we can close. What would you say is the biggest thing in this idea of equilibrium? What is the thing that you need most right now or lack right now to make equilibrium feel more harmonious or more equal? Like what is missing, or what do you need?
I think less short-term speculation, maybe less money oriented. I see the crypto ecosystem like one of the ecosystem that I was also close to. So like gamers, and when you are playing games, you are not just gaming for the purpose of winning money or winning in general. You discover things and so on. In crypto, it's like a little bit the same, but you have a layer of money that create also some agro behavior or something like that. So I really think that we should build with less short-term orientation and making sure that everything, what is valuable is that it's sustainable. And sometimes I really see too much hype That is good because we need to create hype and so on. People are engaged, committed around the project and so on. But, asking the founder when, what's next, just because you want to sell your token at a higher price, it's not really what create, I think, the best orientation for creating some stuff that are sustainable. And I really think that it's also something for VC. I have seen so many behavior from VC that are just not mine, but some LPs and so on that are just, okay, very short-term oriented. I really think that's something that we should avoid if we want to be sure that in the long term, this ecosystem will survive. Because if it's not the case, if you have too much cycle where you destroy what you have built because there is crisis, because there is too much people that lost money and so on. Clearly, at the end, people will just not come back, and it will be just this technology will be taken by bank. And I have no subject. I think this infrastructure is here to survive, but we will not build a community that is engaged behind certain principle and good foundation. So it will just be let's say an infrastructure for financial use case, but nothing behind it. So we need to protect, I think, what made crypto different with people that are opening to financial liberty, freedom, and so on, and making sure that it's not totally polluted by only short-term, very aggressive aspect of speculation. And that's, I think, that is a wish for me. If you want to find a good equilibrium on the long term, that would serve the Web3 ecosystem.
I really, that's an amazing point. And I love the draw to gaming. I think that's a really interesting example of like an existing spectrum of intention that can look very different. Like on one side, gaming could be going to the casino and betting and gambling and just completely caring about the return on investment. And it's, in some ways, in my view, limited and depressing and not ideal. And there are people who care about that and want to do that. And I don't personally find nothing really inspiring about that. People who do that are there for certain reasons. And those reasons, I don't necessarily align greatly with them, but that is in some ways on the gaming spectrum. On the other side of the spectrum, you have people who are just playing games because they truly enjoy them and they don't actually care about any of the financial. Some people play games for no money at all, just because they love the community and the people that are around. I think that there's a interesting middle ground that we're trying to strike here, where like people are here because of the camaraderie, enjoyment, the utility, the value. There's enough of an application layer that has been created to bring their personal lives or their business lives true economic value along with other people. And there is that benefit commercially or economically for doing so, or doing that really well, or whatever it is, or sticking around for the long haul. Like incentives really do matter, but it's a really tough place to be if you're trying to build on one side of the spectrum and the people who are coming aren't necessarily aligned with where you sit on that spectrum. Because there will be there will be a place for everyone on that spectrum, the stablecoin spectrum. And I think it's really important for both the issuers and the assets to be clear about where they sit on that spectrum, and for the people coming in to play the game, metaphorically, that they know where they're going. And I think I know I'm kind of ranting now, but the danger in my view, and what's really harmful or hurtful, and just unideal, whether it's you as a founder or someone else like me as a participant, is if there's not alignment or clarity of like where you sit, because that can really turn into just a lack of alignment. And ultimately what you're saying is, for the people that you want to participate within the usual ecosystem, there has to be a sense of alignment there. But that can be hard to strike. And I can imagine that can go back and forth in this equilibrium state at times.
Yeah, I think now clearly it's a good sum up, and sometimes those kind of vibes miss me a little bit, but I really think that it depends of the momentum on the market and so on. So, but clearly continuing to build amazing founders or people that want to create new things in crypto should also give some optimism to be sure that we will find a way to make things different in certain.
Yeah, man. Well, we can wrap up there. Any final thoughts, or what would you leave the listener base with on the state of stablecoins, what's coming? What are your final thoughts?
I think it's really difficult to read the future. Stablecoin will evolve a lot. We have seen the president itself in US announcing that he will make his stablecoins. We are in kind of in the middle of a crazy moment currently, so it's really difficult to read what will be, I think, the next 2-3 years on this subject. But I'm sure that, yeah, in less than 10 years, everyone will communicate, because, exchanging value is a way to communicate with stablecoins, and it will be a new form of electronic money that is way more efficient and way more fair, because it's clearly create more access to people that don't have a bank account and want also to keep their money. So clearly, quite bullish on that. The question is, who will be the winners? Is traditional banks will take a big part of the cake because they would just transform their liquidity in stablecoin. That makes sense. Maybe is Tether Circle will keep their leadership with their network effect, especially in certain soft country. So clearly, it's something that is.
Do you think that there are more winners or less winners than people think there will be here? Like, are you of the camp where there's just going to be a ton of people that win in this future state, or is it actually going to remain pretty centralized in terms of who actually owns the power or the control?
It's a really good question. If you take a look to what happened the last 10 years, normally I should say it will stay very concentrated. As I see banks entering in the market, plus also a really great way to reinvent money, and money is something that is really political, like M0. I really think that we will have different approach that will win also this game. And after that, my gut feeling is that the regulator and supervisors, the politic in general, will not let just one big issuer controlling the money around the world. So I don't see a Tether that will weight 10 trillions and will not be, under control from a state or something like that. I really think that in general, we will have more fragmentation in terms of stablecoin. It's also why M0 is making sense if they aggregate money market fund or other asset and issue on top of them. So clearly, there is plenty of utility for stablecoin, usual on DeFi, maybe in the future in terms of payment or other infrastructure. M0 in terms of aggregator, unifying the liquidity and helping other protocol like me to build the best stablecoin with the safest collateral. And maybe there will be banks that will issue also their own stablecoin for their clients. And so clearly, it will be something very interesting in terms of dynamics. But I don't think that we will have just one or big winner on this market. Yeah.
Yeah. The best part is that we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm not planning to go anywhere, so maybe we'll catch up over beers or something in 5 or 10 years, and we'll re-listen to this, and there definitely will be.
We were totally wrong.
Yeah, or we might be completely wrong. Maybe we're still in 2020. I don't know. Maybe we're still more early than we realize. I don't think we are. I really do think this is kind of happening right now. At least it feels like that. But yeah, man, thank you for the time. Excited for the listeners to give us their feedback on Usual and what you're building. So really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Take care.